What up? It's Ray V. Let's get it.
Sad boy
quote of the day.
F ain't for fields, it's for fantasies. So let's get into our deepest fantasies, baby.
I'll give you a third for him, though.
Comment section. PJ redacted. Question. How can I fleece the guy who drafted Gainwell but ended up dropping him in my Dynasty League? He spent the 202 on him, so do you think I can get a second plus a Dunze? And LOL at the baby. Damn, man, that is very oddly specific, bro. If he watches these vids, I have a feeling he might. He probably knows he messed up and is staring at Gainwell's history in his sleeper app right now as my video plays minimized at the top right corner of his phone screen. You could totally sell him Gainwell high to him and snipe a Dunze in a second. I mean, he dropped Gainwell, right? This guy doesn't seem to be good at Dynasty or anything in general. But regarding the baby part, though, I don't think you should be commenting about anything related to a baby or a child because, you know, I call you PJ Redacted for a reason. We are going to do a players to sell high video today. Hey, super refreshing, right? Totally different than that buy low video yesterday. The reason I make so many of these types of videos is because playing and timing the Dynasty market is the quickest, easiest, and best way to gain value. Especially during this part of the offseason, the rookie fever has set in. The 2026 rookie class, that means proven productive veterans are still overpriced in many leagues. Insulated elite QBs are worth consolidating around, and running back value cliffs are even steeper than normal. So my preferred moves this offseason in general are selling aging or volatile running back production, tear down at elite QB if possible, and cash out on wide receivers whose market value assumes perfect development. You want the real, the scoop, the skinny? The best Dynasty managers usually trade players 1 year early, not 1 year late. Let's see what players may have peaked already so you can capitalize on that difference between value and production. Alright, my first guy here is going to be Kenneth Walker. Of course, we talked about zigging and zagging in our buy low video yesterday. Old guy running backs deserve a chance to get some TLC on a roster and all that, especially a 25-year-old veteran running back in Kenneth Walker. My bad, Super Bowl MVP 25-year-old running back on his first contract extension, Kenneth Walker. That's how you have to phrase it when you sell him. That should also work for Cooper Kupp still as well, and I'm only half joking. Low-key contradicts what I was saying yesterday about Javonte Williams in a way, but they are totally kind of sort of pretty much different. I don't think of ACLs and being that inefficient when I think of Walker. Walker is also coming off such a strong playoff run that didn't even matter for fantasy leagues, and his play in the Super Bowl was so good that he even got MVP. Make sure to add that only 8 running backs ever have gotten the Super Bowl MVP in your Kiki with your league mates. But he is on a new team, a perceived offensive powerhouse. There's a lot of hopium and hype for Walker, where I don't think people value him as low as Javonte. I think they have actually pushed his value way too highly. The Chiefs' running game hasn't been special in years, filled with numerous years of too old, no juice Kareem Hunt as of late. And Mahomes may not even be ready to go week 1 as he's still recovering from his ACL tear. It is entirely possible that Kenneth Walker plays better than he has ever played on the Seahawks, but is it likely? I don't think so. I think Walker is good enough to where defenses will be forced to respect the run, which opens up the passing game more than ever. Kenneth Walker being too good but not elite is what will stump and decline his value here. All this game theory plus the fact that he just came off a monster Super Bowl MVP winning game, along with switching to a powerhouse offense in the Chiefs, makes the community label him as an elite running back 1. Which says that the Chiefs even give him a workhorse percentage of carries. They could totally just copy Seattle and give him a competent running mate, someone like Emmett Johnson, who they drafted. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why would they overwork him during the season? The only time it matters for us in our fantasy leagues, rather than try to save and preserve him for a playoff run. I'm moving Walker because running back shelf life remains brutal. Play the odds, brother. He's entering the danger zone in age where an injury could totally nuke his value. The draft pick of Emmett Johnson and undrafted free agent signing of Jaden Ott gives the tea leaves of a 1-2 punch backfield at minimum. Honestly, you could still probably get a 2027 first plus or a young wide receiver, or tier into a younger, promising QB in a Superflex league. If you pivot Walker into a package around a younger, insulated asset, I'm doing it immediately. If you can get into the 105 tier and above, I would. I am seeing some 105 plus for Walker straight up. Do it to him. Next guy we're going to talk about is Joe Burrow. Man, is this guy not always hurt? Doesn't he start off slow every 4 to 5 games a year alongside Jamar Chase because they skip workouts and preseason games? I could be wrong, but it definitely feels that way. Burrow is as good as any pocket passing quarterback can be, but that's the problem with that archetype. His season will heavily depend on touchdown variance. He doesn't rush nearly as much as he used to anymore, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ran even less this year, even less this season after so many injuries have been piling up. A QB with rushing upside can definitely surpass Burrow in fantasy scoring any season. Of course, Burrow will have the longevity, probably, but we shouldn't be looking that far into the future, even in Dynasty leagues. I usually only try to look a year or 2 ahead. I used to do 3 years, but even that feels like it's too much and just too far away to even care. Of course, always looking at future draft classes and all and see what their strengths are or shaping out to be and blah, 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 blah. But I don't really care right now if Burrow be lasting for another 10 years. Give me Stafford. Give me Stafford for 2 to 3 great MVP-like years instead, just like this last season. And of course, you got to add a plus onto that. Even though I have these feels about Burrow, trying to tell y'all to sell him just feels uncomfortable because he's still elite mostly, but in Superflex leagues, the dynasty value is often about market psychology. Burrow's price is near the absolute ceiling again after another high-end season. I would at least explore the idea of selling him because he is priced as a locked-in top 3 dynasty QB. QB scoring is flattening league-wide. Pocket passers lose value faster once efficiency and touchdown variation dips. You can often trade Burrow and tier down to a slightly lower QB and get a plus on top of it, or a first and an elite young piece. Burrow for T-Law and a 2027 first is something I see a lot, or Burrow for Caleb Williams or in that range, and a producer is another trade that I see often. Tearing down or trading away peak values is how dynasty teams stay dominant long term. Literally seeing Burrow for Stroud and a 2027 first right now as I look at OTC. Could probably work your way for more than that too, but that is around what I think a sell high of Burrow would be. Now we got George Pickens. Let me tell you, I love George Pickens. I have him in so many leagues. I had him in so many leagues that I traded him his last year in Pittsburgh to diversify my assets just because he wasn't even starting on my team. I played the odds and I took that L. But he wasn't even starting for me, and I won that year and last year, so it's okay, is what I have to tell myself as I try to sleep at night. I think it ended up being the 111 that following draft. Then I traded back to someone who needed Loveland because I already had McBride. Then I traded what I got back and Mark Andrews or something like that to Lanik Buka, who went like 107 overall or something like that. It's kind of sort of didn't really work out for me, but I still won, and I got my back-to-back, so I just pretend everything's okay. But sidetrack aside, Pickens is definitely a good receiver, but he thrived when CD was out with injury. CD probably was not even fully healthy either, so they fed Pickens more to compensate for the rest of the season. CD should be healthy this year, and we will see how a true target share divvy will be between them. Pickens also thrives in this Cowboys offense since they love to sling the ball all over the field and are constantly on offense because their defense gets off the field too quickly by giving up quick touchdowns and shootouts. The Dallas defense looks much better than last year though. Maybe the shootouts won't happen as often, and that hurts the point production of their entire offense. If Pickens doesn't get extended by Dallas, and I don't think he will, then landing on an incompetent, trash offense could really hurt his value and his production. So I could totally see this being his peak value. And when that value peaks, we sell that thing and recoup assets and value before the dip. George Pickens screams volatile peak value though, if we're being for real. The community sentiment is extremely bullish after his breakout stretch, but several points have been made about how hard it is for him to sustain a top 10 wide receiver production. I'd cash out for a peak sell high value because the hyper efficient deep ball production is unstable and should regress to the mean this season. Wide receiver value is increasingly insulated by target earners, not splash players. In games with CeeDee Lamb, Pickens' target share was noticeably less, and he did have to rely more on splash plays and touchdowns. His perception may exceed his weekly floor as well. Any QB or offensive regression in general could hit his value and production hard. This is just the classic love the player, hate the current price. If someone values him as a top dynasty wide receiver 1 overall, sell. Pickens for 103 and Devontae Smith, yes, sell him. That's a real life trade I see right now. 2 first I probably would feel good as a sell high. Feel like a 1 and a 2 ain't high enough for me though. Call me crazy, but low-key feels like 2 first isn't even that high for him, so maybe even go higher than that. Just start a bidding war for Pickens in your league, and if no one gives you more than 2 first, maybe you should just keep him. Anything similar to that first trade is something safer, and I would be more willing to do that as a sell high. Next guy's gonna be Wan'dale Robinson. Robinson got a nice payday to go over to the Titans. He looks set up to be the guy for Cam Ward, his number 1 target and a safety blanket. He might still be the safety blanket working from the slot, but definitely loses his ever so short-lived wide receiver 1 status. The sentiment around the dynasty community though is that he was paid and he will definitely eat in an evolving Titans offense. The Titans are projected to be much better this season and shoot on all cylinders, so in theory all the weapons should eat. A rising tide lifts all boats. Wan'Dale was great in New York with numerous QBs, and now he is tied to a number 1 overall draft pick in Cam Ward. He should be even better, right? That is the type of hopium that we can capitalize on. Young QBs typically aren't able to buoy more than 1 fantasy asset. If I were to bet on what fantasy asset is to be buoyed, it is definitely Carnell Tate and not Robinson. Of course I could be wrong, but that would take a few things to align perfectly. Cam Ward of course needs to make a big leap to support at least 2 weapons. Robinson would have to be the safety blanket in the slot, and I'm unsure if he will take the slot on full time or Gunnar Helm gets some run in there as well. If the Titans move to an ever so popular fad currently in 12 or 13 personnel, Wan'Dale is likely to be the odd wide receiver out and will get taken off the field. In 12 personnel, only 2 wide receivers are on the field. Typically the slot receiver is the weakest blocker or isn't better on the outside than the other 2 receivers. In 13 personnel, only 1 wide receiver is on the field. That will 100% not be Robinson. So a lot could go wrong for him in these game theory scenarios. His value spike just feels fragile. What I'm truly worried about Wan'Dale Robinson is he is a smaller volume slot archetype. The fact that it's hard to maintain elite efficiency, especially on a new team. The Titans offense should have its ebbs and flows this season, and the new incoming target competition in Carnell Tate. He's exactly the type of player who can go from ascending PPR monster to wide receiver 31 nobody wants in just 1 season. If managers in your season believe he's permanently arrive, I would sell him. Sell him right now at what it could be his peak value. I was trying to find good valuations for Wan'dale, but even trades like 202 straight up for Wan'dale didn't really tickle my fancy, if I'm being for real. So I guess that means a 2 and a 3 with hopes for countering back and forth for 2 seconds maybe. Maybe a second and a young player like Golden or Jaden Reed would be probably good enough as a sell high. Montgomery in a second I see right now on OTC, and that's something I would do. That feels like a good sell high to me. So any running back in that range in a third would probably get me to walk away, if I'm being honest. Unfortunately, a lot of these people are just using Wan'dale to tier up, so you can try that too. Wan'dale in a pick for Waddle or DJ Moore, something like that. Maybe Wan'dale in a second could get you Ladd, Odunze, Burden, something like that. That feels like a nice sell high to me. Last guy we're going to talk about is Zay Flowers. Flowers finished last season as a wide receiver 7. Wide receiver 7 overall. Dude, wide receiver 7 is absurd for a Baltimore wide receiver. He played well, but he was definitely bolstered up the overall finishes because the wide receiver production last year was simply poorer than usual. The decline in wide receiver play last season pushed Flowers unwillingly to the top of the rankings. I don't know if he can land a wide receiver 1 finish ever again. That's wide receiver 1 to wide receiver 12 overall. Ever again. I don't think he could do it ever again. Just with that logic alone, doesn't that mean this is his peak value? Get rid of that guy. Still don't think that he was really that good to begin with. He was really thriving in the John Harbaugh, Todd Monken offense, but they both left. I don't know what the new coaching staff and coordinators will do. They are both technically proteges and were inside hires, but will they really run the same type of offense? This offense that gives great games and spikes at times, but ultimately it fails to get the job done. Are they going to see that zigging didn't work? So now they will try to zag? There's just too many unknowns for me to want to keep Flowers at this point. And it makes it easier to want to sell him since the season he came off of is probably going to be his best season ever. Even with all that mumbo jumbo I just said, Zay Flowers still has a strong dynasty value insulation. But that is exactly why I think the time to move him is right now. Baltimore's long-term offensive structure and incoming target competition might make this the best liquidation window. I consider selling him because the Ravens still spread the targets heavily. His touchdown ceiling may never become elite. And the wide receiver market is insanely deep right now. His value is priced near his ceiling outcome, especially after his wide receiver 1 year. I'd happily pivot from Flowers if you can tier down and gain a first, or package him for a young cornerstone QB in Superflex leagues. Flowers for Olave is something I would do. Flowers' value is pushed up and Olave's is depressed currently. That is a great market play on a sell high and a buy and low player. 105 and above is a sell high for me too. Young wide receivers that are valued in that area too, Odunze, Burden, Ladd, add a little bit to Flowers and go get Drake London or something like that is a good sell high and tier up for me. Hope you guys like my 5 players to sell high right now. Do it to them. I'm not even going to say I hope. I know y'all like the analysis and are staying entertained. Make some moves in your league today. Send a random training camp vid of your rookie or your guy on your team doing something in your group chat or sleeper chat. Get the motion moving. Spoiler alert for a vid coming soon though. I finally got one of them orphan teams and am now in a league with complete randoms. The draft has already started, no timer currently, and I already traded back from the 102 to 105, and then I turned around and traded that 105 and a 2027 first for Jeremiah Love. Albeit from the same exact manager, but feels good to put my fingerprints all over this team. With that being said though, don't forget your daily dose of send that trade. Send it. Send it. That's it for today, though. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and remember, rebuilds fade, dynasties reign.
Call me a lover boy, simp, Libra. It's more than love sick. I got a fever. Feelings overloading. Not to be a diva. Standing 10 toes down. I'm not gonna leave you.